Success and progress is solving hard problems. The reason entrepreneurship is hard because you become the absorber of uncertainty to provide certainty to your customers, to your investors, to your employees. If you want something that's going to give you peace, don't pick entrepreneurship. I'm very worried about this whole entrepreneurship is equal to fundraising. This whole celebration of unicorns is absolutely pointless.
Every single time I faced a crisis in the last 15 years journey, amazing things have come out of that. But I did not create those crises. वो हो गया, we had to deal with it, we changed.
I think if you take extreme goals, crisis will come as a gift to you all the time. India's biggest problem is that we are so status driven that being shameless is very hard for us. Success and failure is not guaranteed, but maturity is.
Hello, I am Mukesh Bansal. Welcome to SparX. Our guest today is Kunal Shah. Kunal is one of those rare entrepreneurs in India who has built two massively scaled companies, and he's far from done. Kunal is always buzzing with new ideas. He has very deep insight about Indian consumer, Indian society, and Indian culture. He has very unique approach to building companies, and he is not afraid to be himself. In this episode, we talk about his approach to product craftsmanship. How does he obsess about smallest possible details to create consumer delight? His approach to generating unique insights, which can translate into strategy or communication. How does he recharge himself? How does he continue to learn about new ideas and keep experimenting? And how does he find inspiration? I learned so much in talking with Kunal, and I'm pretty sure you will find a lot of relevant mental models and tools that you can apply in your own life. Kunal, great to have you here, man.
Thank you.
Really looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you.
Before we just, we were just talking about the new Elon Musk book. I finished reading a couple of weeks ago, and you said you are reading, and it looks like you are excited about what you're finding there. What are your takeaways so far? Do you think the things you are able to see, which are relevant to the work you do, I do, a lot of entrepreneurs in India, what we are trying to do?
I think few consistent themes are. I think I've seen a trait in entrepreneurs where the risk causing excitement, right? And it's a very unique trait which is required for a creator, that you look at a crisis differently, you could look at an opportunity differently. And I think, I remember the time at COVID when I was talking to founders regularly, and there's a very clear trait. People were very excited that there is crisis and there is an opportunity. Or this funding winter, and they're excited about this opportunity and just kind of crushing it. Or people who are in the numb zone. I think one thing was clear that he's demonstrated the extreme example of how crisis actually gets the best out of you, and to the point that he actually creates them. So that he can stay in that mode all the time. Also, goal-oriented behavior, that nothing will come in his way. If he has to learn about how rockets work, he will figure it out. Or if it capitally has to solve somehow to not die, he will figure it out. So I think this unique combination of being extremely goal-oriented, right, and being excited with the idea of risk. And I have a fundamental belief that no substance gets created unless you constantly are okay to sacrifice your health, wealth, reputation. Any slow currency of life is built only when you sacrifice the slow currency you've built in your life. So it's a unique combination. And I think he's somebody who's, for example, Twitter is an example of what he's doing, and converting that into X. It's a huge reputation thing that he's taking. But so far, it looks like he's doing well. And when he let go of 90% of the team, all of us are wondering, why do we have this large team? But he pulled it off, and the platform is doing okay. And I think the time spent of the users is only going up. So the question is that there is something about, I will figure this out, I don't care. And I think getting excited about things that you don't know, and having that intense curiosity. There is this casual curiosity that many people have, and there is this intense curiosity which is, I want to know everything about this subject and I will get there, right? So be it AI to human brain to like any topic. Like he's obsessed about the population crisis, right? And I think these are topics where now obviously you also realize that there is a you need some version of grandiosity to be able to imagine that I need to save humanity, kind of a thing, which I think as Indians we never get this thing to be very confident about these things. But I think you realize that you need this sort of a large megalomaniac personalities to kind of do this stuff. And I think I've realized that and the thing is, Mukesh, it's scary that he's probably going to be running 5 to 6 companies which are above $500 billion of valuation together. Right. Which means, and one thing that is a big lesson is India, before becoming developed, has already taken the Western concepts of, I need to have a chill life and I need to have work-life balance, but no big achievements can come with work-life balance. And I'm not saying it's not a choice you should not make. It's a personal choice. But I think we have to realize as a country, we have to still go a long way. Like you've been to China, Mukesh, we see that like just extraordinary execution. It's called the 996 culture, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. And you see that progress, right? So we cannot have the ambition of being a $10, $20 trillion country and then still expect KR life should be chill. So we are in this, we are a classic country that is confused about, look at the Asian Games right now. We've won the highest amount of medals, right? And you think those athletes are thinking work-life balance to be able to break that thing?
So you've covered a lot of different things. Let's just break it down. Let's just step back. I think you talked about this idea of, really enjoying, crisis or finding the thrill from risk. The bigger the risk, the bigger the thrill. And sometimes it happens to all of us. Pandemic we didn't create, but it gave opportunity to a lot of us to completely rethink. At Cult, we completely reinvented our business. But it's very difficult to force crisis. In the Elon Musk book, he keeps creating these surges. He will just have this some epiphany and say, 2 months from now, we are absolutely going to do that. Do you think some of us also should try to do that in the companies we are doing to create that extreme sense of urgency? Because these are artificial deadlines. I mean, today, from outside what I can tell, things are really going well for CRED. There is a momentum, there is steady growth, there is long-term compounding, exactly same thing in our Cult. Does it merit, creating that, artificial sense of urgency with, just, maniacal obsession about getting something ridiculous done?
I think it does. If you look at it, Mukesh, think about your Myntra days. You could not change the dates of your sale. So everything came together around that time. At CRED, when we had IPL, we had to meet. I can't change IPL dates. And what I have realized is that best companies create these great external deadlines to achieve things and get it done. For example, I was talking to somebody in ByteDance. ByteDance is probably the most successful company in a recent time with TikTok and everything else that they have done. And I've heard that it's like now approximately 50 billion in PAT. Okay.
PAT.
Yeah. And still growing quarter on quarter at like some 20-30%, right? Which is crazy if you think about it, like 2 billion DAU right now. And we often wonder that, okay, homegrown India, can it innovate and win in other markets? Can Chinese company? But TikTok has proven that it can capture the world.
Same populations.
Yeah, and time spent on all other social media has been taken away by that, and time is a zero-sum currency. So one of the things I learned about ByteDance, and I'm still trying to probe more, I've just got a very surface level understanding. They only have a 2-month OKR.
Probably insane, obsessive OKR.
And then ownership is very clearly defined. And if you are not consistently, and by the way, clearly defined, assigned to a person. So this number is owned by this person. Everybody gets out of the way. And if people don't achieve that, they don't get nominated or promoted or whatever. Right? So I think that moment you create this 2 months thing, what happens is a lot of time we go into this sort of sochte hain. Let me just think about it for it. Let me come back to you.
Right. And ByteDance, is it more, I don't know how deeply you looked into it, is more now cultural, or is this one crazy obsessive founder who just...
No, it's cultural. They
Yeah.
have self-selected teams also, and therefore, for example, the ads team over there created the financial services business
Right.
because they were like, "Ye karna hai," and they're not waiting for to just we'll just get it done. And it self-selects people who are paranoid,
Yeah.
self-selects people who want speed, self-selects people who do not want to keep wasting time thinking, and just move.
That's like even more uncommon and much harder to build. You are saying that people are able to take this crazy risk in a decentralized manner. So there seems to be like reasonably autonomous.
The key ingredient to that is by design, only 1% of any employee group will be good at judgment.
Yeah.
And this cannot change.
Right.
No matter what you do, this I don't know why.
Yeah.
You cannot teach, and you cannot teach judgment also. I've tried to say that, okay, you have to just find people who are good at judgment and give them more responsibilities.
Right.
So when you just assign them these positions and they can operate
Yeah.
in some constraints, some broad themes, then you move away from all the micro decisions. But India, we have a cultural thing of everything needs alignment,
Yeah.
everything needs discussion. We feel we are a little bit of a collective society, though. We feel that if I take a thing, and only founders are allowed to kind of
Yeah.
make these
Think about just
hard
if you-
pivotal choices.
Larger, historical narrative, even most of Asian cultures, including China, Japan, South Asia, have all been very collectivist
Yeah.
society. How did, and
Yeah.
China has been one party system and so on. Like, how did they manage to have, let's say a little more?
I think it's a thing. I mean, it's a thing to observe. Like China, I have observed that there is this. If you go to China and ask them, they all believe that they have to beat America, and every single person everywhere, and therefore you see that zeal come in. Let's say, for example, China became really good in Olympics,
Yeah.
right? And India's surge in Asian Games is showing the sentiment. And if you see the way the finals were won, they were not just won cutely. They were won with a lot of aggression, like almost making a statement, right? And this is the sentiment that drives people to say nothing is impossible and they'll get it done. And I think we'll see more of this happening. When it comes to China and others, like when they were collectivists, but they became goal-oriented, right? Like take an example of Singapore. It takes one leader who says, okay, this is our goal and we have to achieve this. And now it's very easy to compare yourselves to America or a Japan or whatever and say, and if you look at Japan, right, like the whole incident that happened in World War, which made the whole society kind of become one to one cause and kind of do technological innovation continuously after that, and build very, very big innovations after that. So the thing is, it takes these big goals, big announcement, big chase, which makes the society aligned towards one goal, and everybody wants to be part of achieving that goal, right? For example, I'm sure our freedom movement when happened in India, like having one person wish for it, and then everybody wishing for it, and then becoming the whole country's mission. We need more of these things.
So from Elon Musk to ByteDance to China to Singapore, this pattern of someone having this insane goal, like complete conviction, कि वो तो करना ही है, like कुछ like nothing else,
and no doubt
at all.
mind that this goal will be achieved or not.
And willing to give anything and everything for it. Which brings me to the question about putting something at risk. You talked about whether your wealth or health or reputation. Is that also a very important pattern that if I want to do something big in life, I cannot protect all of that and still try to do something meaningful?
Yeah, I'm not saying that you have to sacrifice all of these currencies. You have to sacrifice at least one of them. And I think a lot of people don't realize that playing safe is the riskiest strategy right now in the world we are living in right now. When the world is changing so quickly, imagine the onset of AI, right? Like many of the jobs are actually not going to be needed.
Yeah.
So how are we going to ensure that we are keeping up? And now you can use AI as a way to go ahead in life,
Right.
or get disrupted by it. So I think India has a unique opportunity where most of the demographic is young, doesn't have old set ways of doing things. So we could actually really capitalize on it. But it requires you to be very agile, very adaptive to say, I'm going to just move. But this risk taking is a cultural thing that we have somehow not done, right? Because we've been a job seeking, government job seeking nation, and therefore you look at the application count of still these institutions and these jobs is still very, very high.
Right.
So I think we have to get out of that. And I'm very worried about this whole entrepreneurship is equal to fundraising problem. I mean, we have to realize that Shark Tank came in the US after decades of entrepreneurship. We have got this over here before, so we always think that how can I often connect to the analogy is that how can I run without having Nike shoes but you can run.
I think on this, multiple things, but on this point, I want to make a comment and would love to hear your observation. See, in India, as the entrepreneurial ecosystem was growing, at some point we started celebrating valuations, 500 million, $1 billion unicorn and so on. At some point that got boring. Then people start celebrating $500 million raised, $1 billion raised, so quantum, right? I think now people are talking about, profitability, etc. I think 100 million profit, I would like that to be the currency of respect. Like,
correct.
Anyone wants to claim I have built a good company.
Correct.
Are you generating 100 million of cash and growing?
Correct.
And I think we should just, that should be the only currency of celebration, because that will eventually lead to really good companies.
Yeah, I think, Mukesh, business's purpose is to make profit and create shareholder value. So all these interim stages of celebrations were pointless, and therefore this whole celebration of unicorns is absolutely pointless, right? There are so many companies, right, which are very, very profitable, who have no recognition. Their names don't show up in the newspaper, and we keep getting footage. It's not fair, and we are creating wrong heroes. We need to create heroes in so many businesses that are seemingly boring, right, but generate, like, I still remember one incident when I was speaking at some Dubai event, and one person walked up to me saying that I'm a builder, we have 1,000 crores PAT, whatever. and he's like, my name never comes in any of the newspaper, what should I do? I was like, boss, I am wondering, what am I doing wrong? That our name keeps coming up when we have really not done much. So I think the entrepreneurship being confused as fundraising, all these founders being celebrated, is problematic. We are going to create wrong examples, and people will take any measures to get there, which is not the right thing to do, because by design, making large profit is very tough. Years of compounding towards building that, and like building teams, building high quality, and we are also doing this thing of building teams that are also like that, who are also coming for these signals.
So let's go back to then what we're talking about, risk, right? I've often wondered, is risk taking, ability, can it be taught at all, or can it be self-learned, or it's very deeply intrinsic? Even you were hinting, culture has something to do, but culture means that in that environment, I'll start taking more risk because, culture will affect me, or it just, that's how I am and I can take certain amount of risk and I just won't take more risk beyond that.
A good example would be, have Indians who've moved to Western nations where adventure sport is celebrated, do they do adventure sport?
I don't think so.
By company, they don't become adventurous, right? So I think it's early shaping. And have they been put in environment? So let's talk about few frameworks I have seen. For example, I've seen children who played strategy games or risk games naturally have some inclination towards risk. And you will see that pattern in all, at least I have seen. So what I started noticing is that there's a pattern towards, did you play only just physical sport, but did you play also strategy sport, like which trains you for second order thinking. So that's the one big ingredient I have seen. The second big ingredient I have seen is, can you break rules when you need to? Right? Versus like, rules are like heavenly commands. That so that's, do you have the ability to change rules? And most people are extremely scared to break rules. And that also comes from upbringing, that were you extremely strict about it, right? Did you encourage random curiosity, right? For all of us have been told when we demonstrated random curiosity as a kid, ke itna dimag, if you do in padhai, you'll get more marks.
Yeah.
So we consistently killed random curiosity. And sometimes you will see creativity has a strong correlation to under-disciplined kids because they just connect their brain very differently. When it comes to patterns of did you take extreme sport thing to like you were okay with injury and still be able to win, like would you push your limit to the highest brink? Did you break some record rules, something that made you sacrifice? So I think some version of sacrifice is key and comes from a deep place of security but also deep place of paranoia of not achieving something. So what are you insecure about is how we can easily know who's somebody. Like you can predict how somebody is based on what drives their insecurity.
So let's say somebody can introspect and reflect on their life so far and see some of these patterns that, growing up, what was their risk propensity, even small scale, were they able to break rules or not able to break rules, and then you create kind of a mental index of, what is my inherent risk appetite.
Correct.
But can also somebody improve on that? Let's say, I feel like I have so far been a good kid, got good grades, went to good schools and so on.
Life events can cause it. Means I would not wish that it happens to somebody in life, but a major loss in life, personal loss, financial loss, big setbacks are moments where you can actually choose to be whatever. So I think how do you use that time to channelize the energy of that event to become that? Obviously, it turns into dark ways also. People get into very dark places through those moments also. So there is a energy gets created. Then now you can channelize the energy to achieve something, or you can channelize the energy to destroy yourself. So
fair, just like, crisis in business, all of us have crisis in personal life.
Yes.
And that's an opportunity to potentially reinvent yourself or make bold moves, some grand gestures, do something dramatic that you would not do otherwise.
And it's funny, like when you think about Elon back again, like he systematically creates personal crisis also.
That's right, yeah.
He's creating personal crisis.
No, I mean, and this phrase of, creating crisis, I mean, definitely in the business context, I've often wondered, is there a way to artificially create a crisis? Because I have every single time I faced a crisis in the last 15 year journey, amazing things have come out of that. But I did not create those crises. Wo ho gaya, we had to deal with it, we changed.
I think if you take extreme goals, crisis will come as a gift to you all the time. So the fact that we do not have crises is that we have not taken extreme goals.
That's right. That makes sense,
We've all become careful. For example, both of us had very similar journeys in terms of one company exited around the same year. We built another company and realizations from the first company was applied to the second company. The biggest realization we applied is never run out of runway. And we almost died multiple times in free charge, in Myntra, with few months of runway left and all of that situation. So at least at Cult and CRED, we made sure that the runway is always there for years. But did we take away that thing from our team?
Not betting the farm on anything.
Your team or my team never really felt, oh my God, if we don't do this, we'll die.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. And there's only one time we faced it in 2020. And I think, team out executed the best year of execution, before or since, right? But yeah, that was that was a crisis that came from outside. But Kunal, I want to go back to a little bit, now early in your journey, right? As you mentioned, you had, two phenomenal, entrepreneurial outcomes. But, Free Charge was not your first company. In some ways, you had a very unconventional, journey. You've been entrepreneur pretty much from our industry from your teenage years. Can you talk about how did your initially, that initial need or inspiration came, and what was, first 5-7 years of your entrepreneurial journey was like?
Well, I have, I think when you have no money and you have to survive money, you become an entrepreneur. Like that's the mindset to think about. Like when I was a teenager, the family went through financial crisis and I had to do anything and any odd job to make money to survive and pay for my education, pay for all of the things. So I think to me, it was survivalistic to learn. And that's when I learned how to sell. And I think that's another thing I've learned is that people with great academics become extremely terrible at selling, right? And because life comes to them, right? And I think because I had to survive, I had to just sell, convince people to take a bet on me
Right.
when I had no credentials per se. And I did all sorts of things. I've sold Mendy cones to sold pirated CDs to, like, I've done all sorts of odd jobs to make money almost on a daily basis. And then I've gone on to different things. I've built a SaaS company. I've built a marketing solutions company. I have built a BPO company. I've done.
What was your
multiple
mindset when you're doing in your teenage, early 20s, when you're doing all these, kind of, selling pirate CDs or this, like, were you comfortable doing that, or you were somehow trying to get out of the situation?
Mukesh, when you have a setback early on in your life and the family loses all their status, being shameless becomes very easy. And I think India's biggest problem is that we are so status driven that being shameless is very hard for us.
Yeah.
And therefore, all the people who have the ability to become shameless actually achieve a lot more in this country,
Right.
right? Because they don't have the shame.
Right.
They are so status driven in how they operate, because like asking for help. Most people don't do that in India because they look weak,
Yeah.
but they remain dumb. I have noticed that a lot of times this whole status thing allows you to be so insecure that you're extremely easy to offend, right? And who is easiest to offend? Who has built a much bigger image of themselves than what their substance is, right? For example, if somebody told me, "Oh, Kunal, you are overweight," should I get offended? Or should I say, that's a factual information? But I'll ask them, so what do I do now with this information? Right? Very shallow. And I think it's a thing which will change when we realize that we should not be easy to offend. Like we should be absolutely unoffendable. And what makes you unoffendable? When you are constantly building substance, right? And people who are building substance do not get offended, right? Like every day there is hate for CRED, hate for Kunal. Like something, you do anything right.
Yeah.
But that's what you have to realize, that people find their comfort in hating something that gives them some recognition, some visibility. Only when you outrage on social media, you'll get some likes.
Right.
Because you have no substance to demonstrate. So the thing is that when you realize these things, you kind of build some security and just kind of build towards that.
That's a great, I think, mental model for people to keep in mind, that how easily you get offended and what kind of things you get offended by. Sometimes people get offended even with feedback. But, if I give you feedback, you get offended. The feedback back to me is that Kunal ko koi feedback nahi dega dobara.
Yeah.
Right? Versus somebody, who listens carefully, thinks about it. They may disagree, but at least inviting you future feedback. So I think that's people just process, if you get offended easily, you're never going to put yourself in that situation. So you're just creating this protective cocoon around you.
Yeah, and I think feedback repellers, I call them, are or just like compounding, they'll become dumb.
Right. Correct.
Right?
There's no growth, it's like water, sunlight, there's nothing coming in.
Correct. So they will just go down, and feedback attractors are very different type. What do they do? There are very interesting patterns I have seen. First, when you give them a feedback, they don't judge your tone.
Yeah, correct.
Sometimes when we are giving feedback, we are like, अच्छा इसको ऐसे बोलना पड़ेगा, ऐसे करते हैं. Let's just do sandwich feedback.
Right.
Be a feedback attractor. Don't judge the tone.
Right.
You should be. I still remember, feedback is a gift.
Yes, absolutely.
If somebody's giving it, just take it.
Yeah.
Don't judge the tone. When we get a gift, do we judge the cover?
Yeah.
कि यार कैसे cover में दिया है gift? Right? We should just accept it. Right? Second is they will reiterate what the feedback was and communicate back to you after the moment has passed. Right? For example, let's say I told you, Mukesh, ye kya hai, whatever, and you process this and say, Kunal, this was the thing, I am processes. So basically they are reflecting on it and they summarize the feedback. Yeah. And then the best people will demonstrate that this has changed.
Right.
And they tell you that if you observe this again, please let me know.
Right. Yeah.
And then you just see that they just compound like this.
This may appear very simple, but I think, for anyone who's serious about career or growth, right, if you are not able to attract sustained feedback and you put up any defense, that's just, just stagnation from there on. And the good thing about entrepreneurship is you cannot avoid feedback. Investors continue to give you feedback. Customers continue to give feedback. Employees who are leaving you continue giving feedback.
Actually, not just that. Your business is doing shit. That's the feedback.
Yeah.
So you don't need external. It's like a little bit. See, I'll tell you. I remember somebody told me that we have a lot of privilege. So for our kids, we do sports because the feedback is real.
Right.
You lost the game.
Yeah, correct.
Right. Because every other places you don't get that kind of. When you're privileged, you don't get that feedback.
Yeah.
So I think the point is, in some games, it is so clear that you have failed.
Yeah.
And who do you blame? In fact, you'll notice one thing very clearly in all the founders who don't do well and fail. When you ask them after that, there are very few who will say they messed up.
Correct.
Most of them will externalize the blame on, oh, my co-founder, oh, my this, oh, my investor, oh, my market, oh, COVID. So the thing is that, what do you externalize? Right. You can always give. Everybody has good reasons.
Right.
Over a period of time, you can build excuses for everything. So I think the need for crutches and excuses.
Yeah.
So good people I have seen, even if they have good excuse, they will never say that's an excuse.
Right.
They should have done better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, just being able to own something and say, it was my mess up, my screw up, then opens up so many possibilities.
Correct.
Now, sometimes actually I've seen the meetings, let's say you're discussing something went wrong and there are 5 people in the room and people start deflecting or thinking of some explanation and something. But one person, if they steps in, like, I own it. It's like my screw up. That is the guy who's going very far.
But Mukesh, I think in India, we don't create clear ownerships also.
But the thing is, you can create ownership and no one stops you.
No, I know. But I'm saying it's also a double thing because we don't really give clear ownership.
Yeah.
Then people feel that should I go ahead and say this is my ownership? Because even if you own the fuck up, what if the 5 people will get offended that, oh, why are you trying to take the ownership of this? You did not really. So the thing is that it's a very in India, leadership is very fuzzy.
Yeah.
We operate very fuzzy leadership. We do not create hard definitions of roles, hard goals, metric assignment, and we have no single person to blame ever because it's done in a certain way.
Right. Somewhere, I guess, maybe we are being very interdependent society. So we try to still take everyone along and have, hide behind numbers and have this, we are collectively owning failure and success, which in some ways a meritocracy, suffers.
Yeah. I think more than that, nobody really thinks that it's their thing to complete and demonstrate.
Yeah.
They're like, acha, ho raha hai, kuch to ho raha hai. Follow up karta hai.
Right. But see, just, on the brighter side, right? If you look at the entrepreneurship has gone through the roof. Now people jump into entrepreneurship for a variety of reasons. I also understand a lot of people probably leave also very early because 1-2 साल में पैसे हो जाते हैं, it's not as rosy, as exciting as it looks like. It's a 10-year commitment with most likely outcome is failure and nothing to show for it, right? But people are still coming in. A lot of interesting companies are being built. So there is some, inherent, call it either human nature or culturally, like that strong drive is also there, which is, coming out in huge force now.
Yeah, I think my firm belief is that nothing makes you more self-aware than entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
If you really choose to learn from the lesson, right? You may not, success and failure is not guaranteed, but maturity is.
Yeah.
And therefore, if you do not become more mature, then you will never become mature. If you've gone through this journey and not become mature. But the thing is that the reasons people are coming to entrepreneurship is wrong, right? Oh, this valuation, this thing. Oh, I'll get to come on TV. Yeah. I don't think that's the right thing to chase. But because we are status driven right now, that is what's going to. But that's okay. We might end up finding some subsections who will still continue to maintain the journey and see a turnarounds in their lives because of that. But I think I've seen that you become a better employee even if you tried entrepreneurship for a bit, right?
So let's talk about what are some of those, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be watching this, many of them have probably some interest at some point considering entrepreneurship. What are the fundamental reasons, if you were to distill it down, that you should choose to be an entrepreneur because of, you want to do what?
if you think it's going to be fun and all of that, it will not be that. It's a permanent state of crisis. And the only reason you should consider it is that you believe that you have an opinion that you want to prove is right. And you were willing to sacrifice everything and anything to achieve that. And it's some kind of a mission that you are going after. And honestly, it's not going to be competition that will drive you. It will not be any of these things. It has to be just you. And it's going to be extremely lonely. It's not going to have a community feeling around that. Ultimately, it's a very lonely pursuit. And the thing is that if you want, I think the reason entrepreneurship is hard because you become the absorber of uncertainty to provide certainty to your customers, to your investors, to your employees. And therefore, when you are the uncertainty absorber, you have to be having a much bigger turmoil that you deal with, right? So, and you will be tested on leadership. You will be tested on leadership every year because whatever you did is not good enough. Right. You will be tested on your ability to storytell, to be able to convince people to join your company, to give you capital. I mean, I'm a philosophy major. I had hard time hiring 2 engineers when I started off because I have no alumni to reach out to and say, "Aa jao."
Right.
And you just have to constantly build your ability to sell. You have to constantly build your ability to execute. You will realize that, oh my God, every year I come to a realization that I'm not good enough at all for whatever I have to do now.
Correct.
So, but imagine this being a permanent state. So, I would say if you want something that is going to give you peace, don't pick entrepreneurship.
Right. But on the why you should pick entrepreneurship, perhaps one thing, a couple of things I observed is one is sometimes people feel कि जैसे भी चीजें चल रही हैं, I can do it better, and that feeling does not leave you. You keep thinking मैं better कर सकता हूँ. Then that's a good trait. Knowing fully well, then it's going to be much harder. And the reason you may be able to do better, but the path to be able to do that is going to go through everything.
I think I can tell you that the only good reason is that by the end of the entrepreneurship journey, you will have the best content compared to other people who've not been through that.
Worst case, it's a podcast, so from all the stories that come out of that journey. Speaking of philosophy major, I think I know of only 2 people in the whole world of entrepreneurship who come from philosophy background, you and Peter Thiel. And I feel somewhere I realized much later on part of doing entrepreneurship, because you are continuously going through turmoil, dealing with uncertainties. Sometimes you don't understand why things are working or not working. At some point, you start to step back and building these mental models. That's some ways, kind of philosophical exercise. You're stepping back, observing, creating some models. You think you are a different type of entrepreneur because you studied philosophy. And I think from what I know, you've also maintained your interest in philosophy.
I do believe that there is a role that it plays where I think one value we have at CRED is called truth seeking.
Yeah.
And truth seeking is a pursuit. You never find truth, but you keep seeking it. And I think because of that, you create a culture that is truth seeking, right? Versus belief oriented.
Yeah.
But constantly seeking truth, find flaws, find errors, find changes, find improvement areas. But I think I'm different because I'm always thinking in second order effects because of this. I like to be mostly right in things that we do. For example, we recently launched Garage as a product and it took 15 to 18 months to ship, right? And in most tech places, it'll not be acceptable. But I have a firm belief that you have to become a company that when you launch something, people anticipate and say, "Dekhte hain isne kya kiya." Right? And that onus to create that requires you to do a good job with your product. And when you take it out there, nobody should feel, oh, it is shaky. And that's what creates trust. That's what makes people want to try your thing. And I often say this is related to some directors. Why do we want to watch their movie no matter what their movie's content is going to be? Because they have delivered and met our expectations. And it's only 5% of directors who make that thing happen. But and we will watch their movie.
Right.
We don't need to watch their trailers to believe that we need to watch their movie. We just watch it. And I think that, to me, drives a very different type of culture. Other things are more trust-oriented. I like to work with the philosophy of that. For example, wealth sharing is a very big cultural thing that we have. And therefore, everybody is treated like a shareholder.
Right.
So, there are a few things that very unusual about CRED is that many people have hired their own bosses because they know what is their shareholder duty and what is their employee duty. And when you do shareholder duty, you know you're not good enough and you need a better player to come execute this. So many people have hired their own bosses. Many people have like realized that they're not good enough to play this game. And I think this comes with a long-term thinking that should, all of us believe that the company we're building should outlast every single person who's currently there at the company, and this will come from some value orientation. So I think more values driven, more philosophically aligned. For example, one of the things that we constantly debate, and although we have very strict value that will not allow us to do that, is, let's say, wealth as a category in CRED. Like, there are many business models right now which makes a lot of money, but the consumers lose money in that business model, right? And we've made a simple rule that don't make a single product that we will not give it to our friends, family, and don't build that product. Because if you cannot, means we are all good marketeers that we can probably get into many businesses that may not be good for the consumer, but we'll make money. And I think I sleep well thinking that I have not done something that I would not give it to my friends or my family.
Amazing. I think I love this core value of truth seeking, because most of, in the most company environment, just a lot of just BS goes around, very superficial observation. If people can obsess about truth seeking, and truth have many layers to it.
Correct.
And there's probably no absolute truth. In fact, I remember this quote I really like. It's like, trust those who are seeking truth, not who have found truth, right? and there are a lot of people who peddle truth, as if they know, how things work and all that, right? And so this truth seek.
But it's very funny what you just observed, right? If you look at a society that is not truth seeking, they love to follow people who seem to be absolutely sure about what truth is, right? And therefore you will see like onset of certain type of people that we all follow, and you'll see in societies, like, they will never use the word maybe. They will never use the word I don't know. And therefore, like, a lot of non-critical thinking societies tend to create these unusual leaders in small pockets. Doesn't have to be like a big leader, even smaller pockets, like, and unquestionable authority is given to them.
Right. For me, like, for one key leadership trait is, like, if somebody cannot say, I don't know, or cannot say I was wrong, a guy is, terrible leader, will, can maybe, if something, things are very steady, then you can steer it for a while, but you will never really do anything interesting or promote, the diversity of opinion and all of that.
Correct.
I think so. You mentioned, this, you took 18 months to ship this product, and I think that reminds me, and we had many conversations about whole product craftsmanship. And I think from what I know of your journey, you've always obsessed about product, right? So when did you start thinking about, product is really important for you as an entrepreneur, especially somebody, like you said, you became very good at selling. And so sometime, you can, if you're good at selling, you can sell anything. Your product doesn't need to be that good, or you can sell first and figure it out later. Like, when do you start making the switch that you said, product craftsmanship is really important for me?
I think I probably always had it. I don't know why I had it. Because I think when you appreciate good products, you want to be building that also, right? Like, therefore you keep finding flaws in it, and therefore, like, you want to fix everything that is not in order. I don't know, it's some kind of an obsession, OCD behavior of sorts. I don't know what causes that, but you will notice imperfections all the time, and you will want to say, this should be better, this should be better. And obviously it's very hard to work with people like that, because there is no end.
Right.
Nothing will ever be perfect. So what happens is, I think early on also, I remember when I was to sell like these mehndi cones, I would like have the best packaging, have the branding, put a name to it. There's a mehndi cone sold in few stores around, but I think this need to be noticeable, distinct, because people when they buy something, they want to feel good about themselves, right? And like, why does the unpacking of Apple products give you this joy? Like, you can always just give basic product, and I'm surprised that it's such a small thing that people can copy, but they do terrible stuff with packaging, terrible stuff with onboarding, terrible stuff with that. And I'm not saying we are in the gold standard. We are also in the path to get there. But I just see people just miss out that opportunity in this need to, chalo kuch karte hain fast.
So have you done anything in the way you've designed organization or reward system or culture at, CRED, which is somehow supporting, this spirit of product?
I think just having more people like me who believe in this, and they have the gatekeeping abilities to say this will not go.
So that's mostly interview process that you have to.
Yeah, like in Garage, we had also made a ad film to go along with that. Did not meet the bar. We spent a bunch of money on that. We did not ship it.
Right.
But imagine like 7-8 team members worked on that ad, made it, did not go. And they still did a good job of still doing a good GTM. They did a lot of interesting things because the main ad was stopped. The point is that when you have the bar, and the bar is constantly reminded, and there is a very, I don't know where is very interesting. This is, everybody just makes this illusion. This is not very CRED like. This is not CRED. This is not CRED. And there is no playbook to say why is this not CRED. But osmosis, say people just get the bar very quickly. But every time you need somebody who demonstrates and role models it.
And I think I don't know what's your point of view, but I feel like that product obsession is something that has long way to go in the larger Indian ecosystem. I think people are still a lot more problem focused, definitely scale focused, and sometimes customer obsession there, but product obsession that I want to build a product for the sake of inherent beauty, aesthetic, ease of use, less friction. That I think somehow probably, and if I compare Indian ecosystem with the Valley ecosystem, right? It came from very different heritage, from 60s, and the design, aesthetic, tech, all part of the same culture. And eventually I think this carried over to a lot of things. And most products achieve their scale because products were good, not because their marketing or their sales machinery or distribution also outstanding. So I feel that's one thing that definitely needs to evolve in the Indian ecosystem.
I think we will get there when we have enough role modeling that is happening, right? Like, we are so lucky that many good companies, CPOs come in and join in our product team in not senior roles, right? Like, but they just want to be around good people. We see the best design talent getting attracted to CRED. Like, we probably have 10, 12, 14 people who could easily be head of design of anything. But they just want to be around these people. And I think if you can attract a certain type and say, this is the bar.
Right.
Like, so many times people, like we have seen in design, people make extraordinary content to apply for internship and like put it on the internet and like request to be allowed to come to CRED. I think if you become a desirable, so it attracts people like that, right? What you tolerate, what you don't tolerate, what you say, kid, we will not ship things that are not beautiful. And even if it means it's a delay, then it just forces that type of people, right? But the problem is not everybody sees beauty the same way, and I don't know why. And I don't know how to decipher that. But I think when is something looking okay and looking great, and I don't know how to bring that. I think we need to probably allow. Means probably I make this a very general statement, but non-engineering talent to be in a dominant positions. So you need to bring people with different aesthetic, different taste. But I think the need for excellence is missing.
Right.
I think beauty is just a manifestation of that. But pride. Like, I remember this beautiful thing that I read a story. I think Rajkumar Hirani talked about Vidhu Vinod Chopra once, saying that what is his method of getting scripts right? And he's like, you walk up to him and tell him that he'll say, so how do you rate your own script? And is it 9 on 10, 8 on 10? And if you're not up there, are you proud of it? He'll just stare it. So it's very interesting. If I told you, Mukesh, are you proud of this?
Right.
And if you really are good at craftsmanship, you will say no,
Right.
which means you can go back and work. If you say yes, but I can see that it's terrible, that means I cannot trust you as a craftsman, so I can let you go.
Yeah.
But is there an inherent pride of work? So I think what I have noticed that good people, craftsmen mindset, are trying to get the applause of their peers and the audience and not their bosses.
Right. It's an amazing distinction. Yeah. It's like whether, after you create something, do you feel like showing it to people around you? Dekho, this is what I've created. What do you think? Give me feedback.
Like if you're a design person, you want the other design people to appreciate because Kunal, what will he understand of design? Like, okay, you can generally appreciate, but that thing that you did in this thing you did, like that nuance, only a craftsman. So they want craftspeople, want admiration from other craft people.
Yeah. I think, and this whole point of non-tech people also being in the decision-making seat and also bringing a sense of aesthetic. And aesthetic is subjective at the end. I don't think, there is really no formula. The different type of aesthetic is also good, but somewhere prioritizing for that, like a director of a movie, two different director may make two very different type of great movies, but they are backing their judgment that mere ko lagta hai yahi chalega, this is, and not compromise until you're truly satisfied.
Yeah, I think I remember once a friend of mine made an interesting observation that a good chef will not modify their dish because of you.
Right.
They just know it's their opinion.
Right.
And either you love it or you don't love it. But at least they are damn sure this is great.
Yeah. And they're not looking for boss's approval, right? In the typical, most companies meeting, you're saying you present. If whoever the senior most person in the room has approved, that is good enough. Otherwise not. Versus, if you're that great shape, you don't care,
I think that's what happens, right? So when you're trying to please the boss, and boss attention to detail is limited because they don't have the time to look at everything, then mediocre products will get shipped. Right. But if you're doing it for your own pride, and you can easily get people to do extraordinary inspirational work if you just know that they have some craft in them, and you tell them that do something that you will be proud of. And that changes career trajectories, because the moment they do it for their own pride, and not for somebody else's validation. But problem of collective society is that we are trained for validation.
Right. Yeah. I think one of the things I would love to do, maybe in this podcast later on, just thinking, what are some of those top 5-6 products where you can see from the outcome that absolute product obsession, that craftsmanship has to be behind it, and then unpeeling it, like what has created a culture, who's the guy behind it, and that will be good, I think, for the larger ecosystem, because
it'll be interesting to do. But the thing is, you'll find out that it's when something is being built with a pursuit of perfection, then multiple people will come to participate to add value to it and just make it even more perfect. For example, when we launched Garage, if you look at the launch website, it was done really, really well. And this is a web team that they feel that I'm participating, my craft will be even bigger in terms of how we demonstrate this. So I think this just maniacal obsession. By the way, it's also hardest to retain people. Because I often tell people that everybody at CRED can get a job tomorrow. They are here for a reason. Right? And if you can get a bunch of people who are extremely special in terms of their capability, and they are there for the joy of it, and to be around these people, that is special.
So Kunal, when part of product craftsmanship also requires having like really deep insight about consumers, and insights are very, very difficult. I generally always struggle with it because you have a lot of information and data and trends and patterns, but that insight on which you can make either a product feature, sometimes a strategy choice, I know I think you think a lot about this, you have your own process, what do you do to come up with good insights, and when do you know you really have a good insight?
I don't think you can become good at it in a short period of time. It takes a lot of iteration, because you have to test your insight and hypothesis so many times that you become good at the gut for one period of time. But I think it comes from this inherent need to find a hack in life.
Yeah.
You have to believe that there is some insight that will create an interesting wedge. And I think believing in this thing, I think I read in the Peter Thiel book, he's like, what is the one thing that you believe the world
Most
disagrees
people
with
disagree
you?
with you.
I think this need to have this strong opinion that nobody else seems to have. But a lot of times people have very dumb opinions for the sake of looking cool. So it comes from combination of truth-seeking behavior, but the need to abstract the insight, right? And I think the best people who have insights are the people who can marry multiple domains. Because insights are on the intersections of two domains, right? What you note, I remember seeing this beautiful chart that the odds of getting a Nobel Prize was 22x higher if you also had performance arts as a background as a scientist. So you know how to perform music and still do that. And I think what happens is the brain gets wired differently to connect different fields. But a lot of times when we make conjectures about different topics with different things, people ridicule you. And most people therefore don't do that, right? But if you do not have that problem of being ridiculed for making these very broad generalizations, and then have a rigor of validating the generalization consistently, you will generate insights, right? Let's take an example. I once wrote long ago that valency of a element creates are you more reactive or not, right? So if you have more valencies, you will be more reactive. If you have less valencies, you are less reactive. And therefore, they are called noble gases, right? And I'm like, it's an interesting thing that, is this something that can be extended to humans also? That what if you have low and low valencies, which means you are hardest to get reaction out of, and therefore, is being noble a function of that, right? Now, it doesn't make any sense, but I see will make a pattern out of it and see. So basically, therefore, I always notice that maturity is always consistent in people who are hardest to get reactions from.
Right. Got it.
So I will make these broad stroking connections.
And this requires, I guess multiple things. One is exposure to different things. Like if you didn't know anything about, valency of, electron, the atoms and noble gases and so on. So you're like, how do you give yourself exposure to different things? And then it's also require reflection, thinking time, because you're busy. You're really not giving yourself opportunity to make those connections, So generally, how does,
I think also thinking in analogies, right? You will notice that people who are great in insights are always great at analogies.
Right.
They can explain things like this is like that, and this is like this, and they can connect concepts very differently, right? And I think many a times people don't like making analogies because like they fear judgment. But the brightest people are extraordinary at thinking in analogies, right? But exposure is a very interesting topic, right? A lot of people think that education is what they have to do before and not after. And my view is slightly different. I have gotten interested in many topics after my education has ended because I'm trying to find connections between the two. For example, I often I often tell the team that runs referral marketing or product growth that how does a virus spread, and can you study it fundamentally, right? And for example, the most easy to spread virus is always light, and then when it spreads, it can use the resources of the host to become more powerful. But the spreading is light, right? So for example, if you compare a common cold virus to an HIV virus, HIV requires physical transmission, but common cold can happen through air. And although it's not as fatal, but if you look at COVID, it was an interesting combination of being able to get both the traits in it. And the thing is that most people have no curiosity around. Everybody went through COVID. How many people researched about viruses? or how many people researched about mRNA, which was a usage technology too, and they won the Nobel Prize. We all know all the general information, but we don't want to go to the first principles of that. And I think it's just the way you are wired.
Yeah.
I am constantly trying to make connections between things, and insights come. And I think when you ask me a question that how do you know you've got an insight, is there is a genuine moment in your head that feels like a bulb light, right? And there's a study done in fMRI machines that when people get insights, that actually neural pathways light up, right? In the fMRI machine.
Right.
So you will feel that. But are you good at the insight? Is only by testing it. Because a lot of people can get a lot of good ideas and they say, oh my God, this is crazy. Let's take an example of a stand-up comedian, right? They will say, oh my God, this joke is going to kill. But they need some trial sessions to say, do people react to this joke? Because when they thought about it, they are like, oh my God, this is so funny. But nobody's laughing.
Right.
So often the application, so if you look at stand-up comedy, it's nothing but insights. And therefore, I love observing stand-up comedy because they are insight seekers. Because something is only funny if there's a hidden insight in plain sight.
Right. That's right. Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's why it's a joke.
Right. Yeah.
And somebody says it like, my God, he's so right. Like, and we feel that. And therefore, that craft of extraordinary observation.
Right.
Like I recently went for the Trevor Noah show in Bombay and he was observing about Bangalore, this, that, and like this minute observations, right? And what you'll notice is that people have this need for observing for the sake of observing, right? And finding patterns that, for example, once I was trying to see one unusual trait I saw is that people who are able to take risk in judgment, right? As an input metric is ability to take risk. And I said, let me test if some people who I think are good judgment cheated in their exams in some way.
Right.
And not that they were not academically great, but they still cheat. And I saw that there was a pattern, but many of them just did it for the sake of doing it. And they understand the cost benefit of it. But some people who are like, no, my God, this is like absolute dharma breaking stuff, could not understand cost benefit well. So the thing is that I'm always trying to find patterns to what makes something happen, right? Like I've still not, like only one thing I found is a good thing in second order thinking is early upbringing with strategy games is a good input level for second order thinking. I've not found many other good, well, thankfully with GPD I can ask so many questions. It's the main app on my bottom of my phone that I always ask these questions to come up.
How many times you end up playing with GPD in a day?
Maybe 20-30 times a day.
Oh wow, okay, a pretty heavy user. So now it's your best friend is ChatGPT.
Yeah, because I can ask very weird questions and without judgment I get answers, which I would not find structured answers.
So GPT still doesn't judge you, doesn't say, Kunal, come on.
Doesn't say it yet. No, they sometimes say that, oh, this may not be a morally acceptable view. Then it answers my question. So it does judge.
And this is GPT-4, imagine GPT-20.
But
role size.
I think, see, that's what GPT's ability. The LLM is just able to condense the information and connect the dots between two topics, right? For example, I asked GPT that, do all businessmen who have made money through business or vices? Vices is basically any business that is causing harm to the consumer but makes money for you. Be it gambling or some version, opium to anything. Do they all do philanthropic activity to appear good for society? And it says, yes, there is evidence of that. I said, okay, this is too much. Can you give me examples of this in Bombay? And Bombay was built on a lot of opium wells in the background. And they're like, and it gave me 9 people's examples. And some of these people I thought were like really respected people. Their background was opium.
Incredible. And this from GPT?
Yes.
Oh, I think that's probably one big takeaway from this already, I think. And partly, I guess people, call it prompt engineering, etc. But I think all of us, we can only think of interesting questions and follow up with 5 more questions. I mean, everything is there,
I think if I could get access to really good people's questions to GPT, if there was a public available information, because GPT's problem is great questions coming to it.
Right.
Because they can connect different insights. So For example, you can ask a question about, can you apply this thing of evolutionary biology principle on something else? And most times, for example, there's a guy who's written a book called as What I Learned About Investing from Darwin. Pulak Prasad is the name of the person, who's a very successful public market investor. Surprisingly, he's also into evolutionary biology. I am, but I have used that framework to build Delta 4 framework, which was a startup prediction success. He's used that for growth companies.
Right.
So it's an interesting dimension to discuss with him. And he talked about dishonest signaling as a mechanism that mammals use. So, for example, a female in a mammal gets attracted to a male basis their ability to demonstrate size or voice. Like there is something that are signals in each mammal to know, and it's called, and some like frogs, which is amphibian, but like they just have this unique way to identify this one is a better of the species to have progeny with.
Right.
Now the thing is that dishonest signaling is that you can fake that trait, and therefore this person talks about that I don't invest and never meet teams to invest, and they are probably the largest public market investor now, because it's storytelling is dishonest signaling, but consistent performance for 10 years cannot come by storytelling. So he's like, I'm very happy to just look at performance for the last 10 years versus trying to look at the signaling value coming from dishonest signaling. So when you study the principles and apply it to broad fields, that what does a mammal do for dishonest signaling and this, like for example, I was trying to study a behavior that why are we not good at sales? And if you notice that any society that is unlikely to have not have a good dating culture, and let's say arranged marriage doesn't teach you good at sales because you don't really know how to sell yourself, and you're not trying to know how to impress. You are relying on your income and your family's LTV to get you married to somebody suitable, but therefore the skills are not built, right? So I think just broadly thinking about these topics and saying why does this exist and why does this happen, and being okay to make conjectures and things. And most people, I have seen that they will not publicly share their thoughts because they are scared of ridicule. And especially I've seen that with people who are with good academic background, they tend to stay away from publicly sharing their thoughts because they're worried about their batchmates judging them.
I think for India, what would have worked really well for dating also, like a JEE, you write an exam, and based on your rank, you get to pick, right?
Well, that's what the family LTV is all about, right? That it's arranged marriages are exactly that. But I think we lose out on some skills because of that. I think when you study why are some societies good at, for example, I have noticed strict parents and you still manage to get away with many things, become good at sales also because you know how to persuade a strict parent to still get what you want. So you will see that sales skills are also built in those people who have to persuade a lot versus became a compliant child. They don't become good at sales.
No, I think these are very fundamental things. Even from I guess many times we hinted that what happens in early and late childhood shapes you in a very deep manner, and a lot of that school, parents, teachers, siblings are the people you are surrounded by, and then sometimes it sounds like it's a zero-sum game. Either somehow you go through adversity in that period, and you have to rebel, you have to take risk, you have to hide, you have to break rules, which is you're probably going to get punished or get into trouble for that. It's going to be painful, but may come in very handy. Or you have really nice parents that take care of you, they even give you freedom of expression, indulge all, and it's a great, comfortable, happy childhood. But perhaps, you're just not learning any of these skills. You can't take rejection, you can't take risk, you don't know how to deal with adversity. The big challenge of parent, what kind of environment do you create if you're a well-meaning parent?
And I don't know if there's a playbook you can give to parents ki ye 20 cheez kar dena, then you'll be fine, your kid will be fine. For example, relationship with risk, relationship with money. For example, in most communities in India, people don't discuss money. But if you are grown up in a Banya community, money is discussed almost at every conversation and every social discussion. So what becomes shameful to talk about and not shameful to talk about? Are you insight seeking, or are you purist in your academic thinking without any application layer to your academic thinking. So there are lots of these schools of thoughts on how people get there, and I'm not saying that there is no right thing. Like I'm sure we create extraordinary academic people because of not really worrying about application layer, right? And maybe the great amount of research comes from the pure joy of academic pursuit. So I don't know what is right, but I think when it comes to you talk about the word intensity, right? Like I think being intense in what you do, right? I think somehow what we lack so far is this need to be excellent, and being absolutely unhappy with our mediocre outcome, and we feel so much pride in managing to skip work, managing to say, "Arey, aaj to main gaya bhi nahi, aaj to kuch kiya bhi nahi." And the thing is, honestly, the company you work for suffered, but you suffered a lot more because, and I believe that like the young generation is a very unique problem because they all have this need to believe that they're all like celebrities, and they have an image to protect, but they are not building substance, and they're also not taking enough sacrifices, taking risks. They're not having big purposeful goals, right? And they're not willing to understand what are the steps required. And I think one big problematic trait is we want to see the end state of what Elon Musk is and what this is and Steve Jobs is, and we take the end states. We are not interested in their journeys.
No, and absolutely, spot on, right? I mean, if look at any entrepreneurial journey, right? I mean, from my own journey, I tried to start something in 99. I was 23 at the time. It failed, and 99 till 2011, I kept at it. Tried like for 12 years. I have nothing to show for it. The resume was pathetic. But that's later one can say that whatever happened. For eventually right place, right time, blah blah, all of that, right? But that is also part. It's a full package. You can only get the end state, and that's but very difficult to appreciate. When you're in your 20s and you like, how can someone sign up? Okay, I'm going to sign up for 10 years of adversity, and I'm going to bounce off from one place to other. I'll have no saving, nothing, no status.
Yeah, it's hard, and a lot of people reach out to me saying that, oh, I'm this IIT comp science student, this thing, I'm going to drop out. What do you think? I'm like, how am I supposed to
just drop out?
Like dropping out. If dropping out could make people great in life, like a lot of people just don't understand the causation correlation problem, and therefore they're saying, oh, drop out karenge to sahi ban jayega sahi, and may not be the true. And I think there is no right path. It's just one reliable thing is, are you compounding dramatically every year?
Right.
And compounding people have this unique curse that they will lose friends because they have become different people. They will lose attachments to things because they're evolving very quickly, and that is probably the most reliable indicator that you're doing well. The slope, they have very very high slope, and people rarely change the angle of their slope. Like if you're like this, you will probably go like this. If you're like this, you'll keep going like this. So I think slope maintains itself, and identifying people with high slope is not possible unless you are high slope. So it's a very weird problem.
Now, I think you're also hinting to some of the core idea behind this podcast. Why I'm doing this. This whole idea of creating exponential impact over a long period of time. Now, that's a lot of people have dreams and aspirations. People want to do big things, right? But to really understand the journey, that for that compounding is critical. A lot of people who are with you today will probably be left behind. Because if you are compounding, you are learning continuously, you are putting yourself in a different situation, right? The context will keep changing. There's a lot of things, which are, it's lonely journey. It's not going to be very happy path for you're mostly dealing, you're, inviting adversity continuously and dealing with it, growing from that and all of that. So I think this is a big part of, comes with the, it's a cost of wanting to dream big and trying to do something.
Yeah. I think nothing meaningful will come without a cost.
Right. Yeah.
It's just what it is.
As proportional, probably even disproportional. The bigger you want to dream, it's a...
And a lot of times I mean, luck happens to people who are just more likely to be there at that time. But it's just a function of just being this person who's not giving up. And therefore you will see that like if a director is able to get movies right again and again, and music director is able to get things, it's not luck that is working for them. I think therefore there'll be one set of entrepreneurs who will be one time, there'll be multiple things. Like if you look at, let's look at an example of Reliance or Tata. These are two examples, like consistently getting right so many formats. Like you recently saw the Reliance retail round at $100 billion. Like it is extraordinary execution, right? And like if you think about it, the company started from trading of cloth.
Yeah. That's right.
To what it is right now. It is just so. I remember, the tagline is "Growth is life."
Their tagline is that?
Growth is
I
life.
didn't know that.
Yeah. And I asked once Mukesh Ambani that, like, I love this line, but I'm curious to know what's this line about and why did Dhirubhai Ambani create this line? And he's like, what's there to life if not growth? Right? And they just fundamentally believe that growth is life.
Yeah.
And I think the moment you have that philosophy, and the other thing he told me was interesting is that good people are always having fun when they're going through the journey of growth.
Yeah.
So he used to, his way to test if people are in good energy zone is that in Gujarati he would ask the key leadership, "Maja aave chhe na?" Like, are you having a good time?
Yeah.
Because that's very important. That are you having a good time doing this? So this need for growth for the sake of growth.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's path for everybody. I equally respect not chasing growth and chilling and like I know a lot of people who have gone and farming and living their life, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's a choice you can make.
Right. So, goes to the whole journey being the reward, right? The entrepreneurship journey is not from a lot of outward appearances may not be great, but you can still enjoy every single day and having to do it.
Yeah. Like Mukesh, like how do you teach somebody to be more ambitious? You can't.
Right.
They bring that or they don't bring that. I can create a platform for ambitious people to do well in life.
Yeah.
Can I make them ambitious? I don't think so.
Yeah. So somewhere a lot of these things are probably inherent, or maybe how your childhood journey went and how you shaped, right? And so you have encouraged a lot of entrepreneurs through, like you are very prolific in your, angel investing. What is the thought process philosophy behind that? It's the volume of checks that you write every year is just mind-boggling. But I'm sure you're, a thoughtful guy. There's probably a larger.
I don't know if I can be called thoughtful on this, but I don't have any investments in stocks or mutual funds or anything else. I only invest in startups, and the reason is I've made my wealth through this. There is one way to pay it forward, and if I can be, I don't know, part of journey of some companies in some way, and if that results in them creating that pay it forward culture as well, we will create an interesting, like a viral behavior, which should get promoted. And I think if I wanted to make more money in life, I can build more companies. So it's not monetization feature of my life. It's an engagement feature of my life, which is just figure out a way to give it back. And if it kind of keep paying it forward in some way or the other, you are able to kind of be part of an interesting time where like many people took bet on me, like there are maybe thousands of people responsible for my success. What if I can become a small reason in journey of many other success stories?
Any criteria you look for, like, because I'm sure like tons and tons of people reach out to some
I think now I just don't have no bandwidth to really meet people. So it's basis you will tell somebody and I will ask somebody and I'll just say, boss, just go ahead. That's fine. But so I've removed like too much filtering in the thing. It's all mostly through references and some VCs investing. They'll say, Kunal, can you come along in this round? And I'll do it. The reason I stay away from trying to judge, because if I'm trying to give it back, then I cannot just be too judgmental about it, as long as there's some filtration criteria. But what I have do though after that is they, in their journey, if they have hard problems, discuss that with me. And that's a very interesting thing that you'll notice that if people do not have hard problems to deal with or discuss, they're stuck in small problems and therefore they will never become a big company. So I've seen that very interesting pattern in founders that, and one of the things that I always believe that if we ask ourselves, what are the hard problem I solved last month? And you write a journal of that. Most of us will not be able to write anything.
Agreed.
But success and progress is solving hard problems. But is it cultural? Like, let's imagine this. Let's say in Cult, you do a monthly meeting with your team direct and ask them, each of them, what are the hard problems you solved last month? And they all say that, including you. And what if there is not great content? You've not moved. So if you just do this, just one thing, it takes 5 minutes to write this.
It's like an outstanding mental model. I'm actually reflecting as you're speaking, and I agree. Like there are many months where I don't solve hard problems, right? And will add up over a bit of time.
Yeah, and one rule you have to make is that don't write it for the sake of writing. If you don't believe that it was a hard problem, solve it, so then NA karke chhod do.
Correct.
Don't try to jabardasti.
You are able to follow this model like for yourself?
I do it for myself. I'm trying to implement it for my team because I don't like being busy. I like to solve 1-2 hard problems because that's where my value add is for the company, right? So, but a lot of people love being busy, which makes you solving hard problems requires you time to think. But we love to act too much.
One of my all-time favorite phrase is this, beware the barrenness of busy life. And I think I have suffered a lot from that. I see pretty much everyone around me suffering from that, and this whole, the hustle culture, you're continuously hustling, right? But you just zoom out, it's just noise. Because that there's no clear insight, there's no clear hard problem, there is no sustained effort. It's just, it's a probably, I think it's a fundamental, entrepreneurial skill that we have to cultivate.
Yeah, and I think it's hard to do because it's very easy to be busy. कुछ ना कुछ करते हैं, कुछ complain करते हैं, कुछ ये करते हैं, कुछ
false false signaling वाला false productivity आता है. You feel like you're productive.
Yeah, like for example, I look at founders who send me detailed updates as an angel every month. इतना लंबा, and I'm like, एक चीज बता दो क्या hard solve किया.
Right.
But they just want to celebrate, and therefore I don't like people who want celebration of every small thing, right? And I get very worried when there are teams who like to celebrate every small thing. And it's a very controversial opinion because a lot of people are like, no, you have to celebrate everything. I'm like, why would I celebrate that? Like the bar for what we celebrate should be high so that we create a group of ambitious people who really, really respect something. But I think a lot of people find this quick motivation कि ये भी इस milestone को भी celebrate करते हैं केक के साथ, इसको भी celebrate करता है, which doesn't create good outcomes, like great outcomes.
I have that in common. I think I've often been, accused of not celebrating enough or not acknowledging. But same filter is it is really good to stand out, and you can't stop yourself from celebrating it. Is that good?
And you will not need my validation to say that we did something well. You will know.
Just this whole your angel investment portfolio, all this in entrepreneurs, and I'm guessing you at least get to know what ideas they're working on. If you zoom out, think about what are the big opportunities, which like looking ahead for 10-15 years, people who want to sign up for solve hard problems, which are different areas they should look at.
I think it's a great question. The question to ask is, what would make Mukesh give me 20% of his income or 20% of his wealth? Right? And if I ask that question, Mukesh Bansal.
The bigger words.
Mukesh Amar is actually, that's a good question for him also.
Right.
And I'll tell you what it would be. It might be health.
Right.
And if you could improve his health by 50%,
right,
could you ask for 20% of his wealth?
Yeah.
Probably yes. Therefore, you have to think about a human motivation as like, imagine a Gangotri river at the core, and then it goes into all these different streams and rivers and everything, right? So businesses are nothing but dams built on these streams of water flows, right? कोई छोटी stream पे बनाता है, कोई बड़ा river पे बनाता है, कोई Gangotri पे बनाता है, right? And at Gangotri the motivations are very simple. I want my health.
Right.
I want my kids to do well.
Yeah.
I want to be able to get recognition. I want, so core human motivations are as simple to what mammals have.
Right. Yeah.
And then through the reverse, it becomes, oh, I want to be able to look good for this event that I'm going for.
Yeah.
So you can take which problem. For example, if you are a designer that sells apparel for weddings
Yeah.
or evening events,
Yeah.
now in terms of gross margin, you'll make more money on the event, but the shadi is not done frequently, so you may have a TAM problem, but this might have, I guess Zara would just win on this. So, and another mental model is, where are the largest profit pools of India
Yeah.
or the country, or what are the richest people and what do they do? So profit pools do not change. They're like somewhat like laws of physics. They remain.
Yeah.
The way to attack that profit pool changes.
Right.
For example, will we be a big consumption nation till we become a dating culture?
Yeah.
No, because you don't really need to like be impressive to be able to get success in your marital journey, because arranged marriage is solved for that.
Yeah.
And therefore, we will never be a massive apparel consumption thing compared to other nations, which and divorce rate is another factor to think about. Let's say a country with high divorce rate will make people come back in the market again and again to impress, which makes the cycles of consumption to look good and be healthy. Is
Do you think India is going towards, the becoming like dating culture fast, or is it a slow process which will
it'll be
take
slow. It'll be slow because we live in these cocoons of our Bangalore, Delhi, Bangalore, but we don't realize that. Look at the gender ratio of participation of labor. Like we have less than 10% urban females actually having independent income.
Yeah.
So by design, the pools are more likely to not meet, likely to not know each other, and the surface areas are limited. In our private worlds of like these, I don't know, startup world, or I don't know, 2 million people, we feel कि boss is so सब कुछ बदल गया है. But they're mimicking mostly a Netflix culture. That's not India.
Yeah. But going back to the possible opportunities, one is this like very macro view, saying, let's say someone, if you can really help extend, human lifespan.
Yeah.
It's a tough problem, large problem, applicable, right? It's a very big blue sky thinking versus health. Well, let me pick a very tiny example. I don't know. You figure out to make a better, I don't know, some surgical glove, which is half the cost, which is also a good opportunity. Someone can build a $100 million business. How should one think about, in terms of like here and now, clear problem to solve versus big picture, blue sky thinking?
I think it's about what will personally give you joy, first of all. I think it's important to decide that I will find joy doing this, and I look forward to going to work next day.
Right.
That's one factor. The second thing is large market sizes, right? If you build a surgical glove business in India, you would not become a good business, large business, because the market is very competitive and the price points will be very cheaper. But let's say you do this for the US and figure out a way to do that, it'll be significantly more lucrative, right? And therefore, smallest SaaS company in US can be a very large outcome. Over here, people are still yet to figure out if you use SaaS or not. And value of time is not understood as a concept yet, right? So we are going to go through markets very different. So when a country doesn't value time, convenience-driven businesses will not become large, right? And therefore, like, look at the state of grocery delivery. Like, it'll still struggle to be large profit pool because I have so much time at hand because we don't value time yet. And I think that's going to take a while. Like, for example, most people who are earning well can afford multiple staffs, but they will not do that yet because culturally we come from constraints, right? But should you be spending time on that? You should be spending no time on it. So I think we have to go through those journeys.
And just, does that mean how should generally, entrepreneur large should think about selling to people in India, whether consumer business versus selling outside, which is obviously a market are humongous, of a more competitive and probably less context is available. Like both whatever you and I have done so far is, we've sold to, Indian consumers. I think right now, fine, you are going after a very large profit pool, but generalizing, is should lot more people think about, taking advantage of, whatever labor cost arbitrage and so on, and going after much larger profitable globally, or the India opportunity, given that 7% GDP growth and all that is equally exciting?
I think everybody has to play to the level of the game that they understand, right? If you have not built anything yet, and you start thinking, "Well, I'll go for this profit pool or whatever," but you've not understood basics of building. So I think it's levels. Could I have imagined doing what I'm doing right now when I was starting my journey as an entrepreneur?
Right.
No.
Yeah.
So I think we have to choose our levels, basis our understanding and unique insight into that market. I did not come from financial services background to be building a fintech company or a lifestyle company for that matter. The thing is that when do you do that? When you can create an understanding of what I understand and what is the revenue opportunity, and then you build and then expand from there. But if you have to go for a large profit pool backwards, it will come from research. Like, a lot of people don't understand what TAM is, and they get excited by the problem to solve. I think if you rephrase that question, like, a lot of engineering background founders say that the problem I'm trying to solve versus what if we said the opportunity I'm going after, right? Or the inefficiency I'm going after, and then the TAM I'm going after, right? It just becomes, like, for example, when we started CRED, we said we're going for a set of consumers, not like we'll only offer this and that to them, right? So a lot of people, when we launched again Garage, like, they said, how does it make sense to have vehicles, but we have like lakhs of vehicles parked already in a week's time of launch, because we just believe we are building for an audience, and if we build good products, they'll use it, right?
I think this also reminds me of one thing that I struggle with, partly being part of Indian consumer businesses, right? We all know most of the income is concentrated among, take your number, 5 or 10 million households, and that's where concentration continues to grow. Are most people who want to build consumer business in India are better off thinking of that audience, or is there a way to think of a much larger audience?
It depends on what the business is, right?
Can somebody build a very large soap business? Just an example. Is it possible?
Is it possible?
If you decide, if Kunal decides, I'm going to, build the next best-selling soap.
If they can move capital, because there will be a lot of upfront capabilities that you have to build. If you want to build a large business around it, right? Can you disrupt on price point? Can you differentiate on marketing insight? Can you create something? Let's say, for example, if you're thinking what Dove's insight was, people are worried about dry skin and softness was missing. So they took that insight and took that thing in a very big way and made an imagery around that whole thing. So, but you need very sharp insight on what is the gap, and then create distribution capability to make this work. If you're thinking that I'm going to build an internet business of soap, no. Most people don't like going and buying soap online. Most people don't even think about buying soaps, and most of the time, people who are buying soaps are not the actual users. Like, somebody else is buying for you, and is it top of mind for you or not? So I think it's about, and if you think about, the better example is deo sprays. They did not talk about odor, which is a negative thing. They talked about what you would get if you smell well. Would you be attractive? Would you be impressive? All of that. So you can take the insight, and if you take one more company that came along, Fog, which says, oh, there's more content per spray. So somebody has established the value of the category, but this is coming more content, more ingredients, more volume per price point. So there's always going to be this play that will always play out. But the question is that, for example, someone like me, I will not do operationally heavy businesses, right? Because I have a certain view that I want to operate on leverage and tech leverage, and therefore my choices will always be limited to that. And a lot of people will be very good at managing. Like, you ran an offline business now with a lot of gym centers. Like, I can never do that, and I would never do that, right? Because just managing so many employees and running offline businesses is a very hard thing to do.
And different type of business requires different kind of capabilities and different level leverage and so on. But I think what I was trying to hint at, I feel in India, opportunities everywhere.
Yes.
It's just really almost nothing, you can say that it's given. Like, even something as old and still as infrastructure, what Adani Group has in the last 20 years. It's only, 2-decade-old story. So that's in some ways, very exciting part of India, right?
Yeah. The thing is that our country is growing. Like, you can build many businesses at the same time, right? And we have a younger demographic. But you have to understand a few things. For example, it's very hard to build businesses where your customer cohort doesn't have income.
Right. Correct.
Or let's take an example of apparel as an interesting thing, and you've been in this business. Like, somebody told me that in India, men's apparel is significantly bigger than female apparel, which is absurd. Everywhere in the world, it's 5x bigger. And
Unfortunately, but it is absurd.
Yeah, but that is, if you do not understand the macro fact that less than 10% of Indian urban women have independent financial income, and their opportunity to go out is limited because they are not working, is going to make you realize that, it is because of this, and therefore it is causing this behavior, and therefore you'll choose the market accordingly. But let's say you take a global insight and say, I'm going to launch a designer office wear brand for women when the market is shrinking. You can't change that behavior. You are not in position to get more women to start coming to the workforce because there's a cultural trend or macroeconomic trend that is causing that behavior. So you have to pick. So I always like to say that pick an industry that is growing. But most people don't do research only.
Right.
They are like, I know how to design clothes, so I'm going to build that.
No, completely. I think being part of a rising tide just makes life that much easier.
Yeah, it's best to be lazy and ambitious in life.
Absolutely. That's a leverage. I want to zoom out and just talk about India, your perspective. I mean, the overall macro situation for India has become very optimistic, probably too optimistic and very rosy, and everyone is, I was actually in US last couple of weeks, and I think people are almost looking at India in awe that this is the next emerging superpower. Everything seems to be, it's very true to pinpoint what is wrong in India compared to all other parts of the world. What is generally your take on that? That how much the euphoria is justified? How should one think about next 2 decades, and what are the pitfalls?
Well, there is reason to be optimistic, and I think all of them are valid reasons. But I think there are factors which I talked about, female participation of labor, right? Before China became prosperous, 96% of urban Chinese women were in the workforce. We have less than 10%. So, and literally 3-4 countries are behind us. Like Bangladesh is ahead of us, Pakistan is ahead of us. I think the point is that we don't look at this data, and therefore we are not acting on it. Number one. Number two, skilling. Degrees versus actual qualification, distraction on time spent, right? Like, if all of us are spending so many hours on social media and internet, what is the productivity impact of this? And data is so cheap, but what is the outcome of it? Are we doing this to learn, or are we doing this to watch reels? And that's the nuance of that. Then there is a thing which is about like entrepreneurship success of that. Like, you have to create more and more capital coming in. Because see, it should not become a thing that everybody came and said, oh my God, this is not working out. But good news is, if you take a 10-15 year view, we will still do well and still become very, very big. Now, I think the ambition of the core society is going up, and we're extremely optimistic, which also helps. And sometimes it's the mood of everybody that drives the thing. And I mean, if you see, like, even sportsmen, like some extraordinary teams create good outcome. Like, if you see, like Morocco in the football thing, like, it's just the belief of those group people, like not the pedigree that got them there. So I think sometimes it's just that drives extraordinary outcomes.
And some of the things, this whole topic of women participation in workforce, unfortunately, that's also not changing. It's one thing. Something is, So when something is declining, you cannot extrapolate, say, ki it will get fixed 10 years or 20 years from now. So that actually, I think I don't really understand, how to, if it's declining or even stagnant, stays like that for next 10 or 20 years. I really don't know what that means.
Most people don't understand the second order effect of, let's say there is a dual income household. it creates 8-10 jobs.
Right. Correct. Yeah.
But if a single income household, right, many of the tasks are done by somebody who's actually well educated, but choosing to do tasks that are not matching their qualification. And while it may be a good choice from their personal life, it may not be a great choice for the country's economic outcome. And these are all always conflict. I don't know what is right.
Okay, so fine. I mean, one is we should not make a value judgment that is fundamentally wrong, but it's peculiar. I think that's a fact, because most world is not like that, and most countries which have gone through phenomenal growth, they have equal participation. But who should do anything about this? Kiska problem hai?
I don't know. I wish I knew the answer, but at least we should know that ye problem hai.
It's too obvious, like staring us in the face. We see in all companies, you look at, just as you go up in levels, it's just percentages drop abysmally, and it's just right there in your face. So but I really don't know, like beyond who should do anything about this. Maybe we'll park it for another day. Kunal, so every time I talk to you, I think the first time I'm talking to you in front of camera, but you have incredible insight. Very thoughtful leader and entrepreneur. I feel like a lot of people can, especially in the entrepreneurship world, can really learn from you. What is the best way? Like, how are you thinking about it? I think, a lot of this, you have created these mental models, this way of looking at things. You are leveraging that. Well, I'm pretty sure people who work at CRED see you in action day to day, and through osmosis learning. And I think you have something to contribute, which, people at large should know. Like, do you think about it?
I don't know. I mean, it's fairly grandiose of me to think that I have things to contribute. I think if I can create people who can learn, and I can learn from people, we'll be through a process. But I think, Mukesh, I fundamentally believe all the knowledge that we ever desire is out there, probably free now.
No, but the thing is,
we are not looking for it.
But you are able to put it together in a way. You have a style of communication, and you have also, it is a lived experience. You are just not giving gyan, right? These are tested things. You have applied them and observed them. So I do think maybe you should, I think at some point you are encouraging me to think about social media. I'm not fully on social media, but at least podcast is here. I think I can encourage you. I think, I have some of these, ideas I've heard from you before. But back of mind, I'm again thinking when I go back to work at Cult on Monday, I want to have some conversation about what is the hard problem you have solved and so on. I mean, these are very interesting and powerful things, which I think, I think some can benefit from.
Yeah. Means I keep sharing my journey and evolution consistently in public. And that's one way of thinking in public.
Right.
But beyond that, I think... I fundamentally believe that there is no shortage of teachers. There is a shortage of people who have curiosity and desire to learn.
No, that's also fair. I do agree. Today, we all have ChatGPT in our pockets, and if you're willing to ask very intelligent.
Exactly. And most people have stopped asking questions beyond the initial joy. But this is very crazy, that people who are curious, now with GPT will become like this. So again, the society will have a divide on curiosity.
So that whole divide is a whole new topic. Maybe one day we can have a deeper conversation about that. But I just want to thank you, Kunal, for taking your time. It's a fascinating conversation. I think I continue to learn every time I talk to you. I'm pretty sure a lot of people will find a lot of actionable takeaways from this and be inspired by your journey, and probably a lot of pitches will also come your way for angel investment. Thank you very much, Kunal.
Thank you, boss.
At SparX, we aim to bring to you stories of exponential impact. We share in-depth analysis of what goes behind success stories. If you find our conversations interesting, you can join us by subscribing to our YouTube channel. You can also listen to SparX on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or any other audio platform of your choice. If you have any suggestions on who we should invite or what topics we need to cover, just let us know in the comments. We are always listening, looking for ways to improve, and keep getting better as we go along.